A complete mockery, a parody of justice. Saudi Arabia is under fire for recently commuting the sentences of those convicted of murdering journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The UN's human rights investigator blasted the Saudi decision, saying it carried no legal or moral legitimacy. The entire trial was widely criticized by rights groups as a sham, noting no senior officials nor anyone suspected of ordering the killing was found guilty. That's despite mounting evidence that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was directly involved. Jamal Khashoggi was a prominent Saudi dissident who was living in the United States. In October of 2018, he mysteriously vanished after entering the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. After uncovering overwhelming evidence, it was determined that Khashoggi had been brutally murdered and his body disposed of by a Saudi hit squad. Back in July, Turkey put 20 Saudi suspects on trial in absentia and has demanded that Saudi authorities cooperate with the investigation. And joining me from London is Azzam Tamimi. He is the chairman of Al-Hiwar TV channel. And joining from Singapore, James Dorsey, who is a senior fellow focused on the Middle East at Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. So Saudi Arabia is facing an international criticism for commuting the sentences of those who were convicted of 2018 murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Azzam, has justice been served?
Well, definitely not. And I think the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia believes, probably correctly, that he can get away with the crime he ordered to be committed or perpetrated in Istanbul. And that's why he's organized a sham trial, and nobody knows whether even anybody has been imprisoned or not. So we really don't know the only thing we know is that he ordered the killing, and the team of murderers who carried out his orders have not been brought before justice.
Yeah. So the Saudis, James, have been criticized for a lack of transparency during the whole trial. The defendants were not named, and it was closed to public. What do you make of this so-called independent investigation into the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, and how do you think the process was handled from the very beginning?
Well, I think that the issue of criticism that we're seeing right now is not the conversion, but it's exactly what you mentioned. The total lack of transparency, the total lack of due process of law that we're seeing. Therefore, as you know, we don't know who these people are. They were never identified. We don't know what the precise charges were against them. We don't know what the evidence was against them. We don't know what evidence there is in terms for definitively identifying who gave the order for this, nor do we know what emerged in the trial itself of what actually happened inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. That's what the criticism is focused on. The conversion is just one more element of this.
So what kind of an impact will this ruling have on the MBS's rule and the kingdom's future, Azzam? And will there be any ramifications for the kingdom, or its role in the global economy is too important?
I think so long as Trump is in power in Washington, the Saudis will not bother about any criticism leveled at them. Yes, the reputation of Saudi Arabia is suffering, that is true. Yes, some of the men named in this crime will probably not be able to travel freely to many parts of the world, but I don't think they are bothered about this. However, if a new president is elected in the United States of America next November, probably we will see things changing, because the media in America, civil society, Congress, many influential circles are very unhappy with what Mohammed bin Salman has been doing.
So will the Crown Prince lose his #1 supporter in Washington, James? Because in Bob Woodward's upcoming book, Trump reportedly boasted about protecting MBS from a congressional scrutiny. Will a Biden administration will be less friendly?
Well, I think that a Biden administration certainly will have a very different policy, but we'll have to wait and see how far that goes. With other words, the Trump administration has had no regard for the defense of human rights, whether in Saudi Arabia or anywhere else. The Biden administration will pay more lip service to that. But of course, what the foremost objectives of the Biden administration are going to be threefold. One is rolling back some of the anti-democratic measures that Biden has taken. Two is repairing the economy, which is going to involve rebuilding relations with allies, and part of that could be looking the other way on issues like human rights. Having said that, there will be a much more critical sentiment towards Saudi Arabia than you see right now with Trump in the White House.
In early 2020, Saudi Arabia bought billions of dollars worth shares of U.S. companies, including Facebook, Walt Disney, Carnival, and Live Nation, and Amazon, whose CEO, Jeff Bezos, he just opened a shopping site in the country. So, Azzam, does this show that the Saudis aren't being held accountable and that the U.S. companies are being complicit in it?
Well, the U.S. companies, like companies across the world, especially in the Western hemisphere, they only care about making more money, generating more profit. And Saudi Arabia is like a gold rush for them. We saw this even after Mohammed bin Salman was implicated in the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, when some of them went and attended a conference he invited them to. So they were not really bothered at all.
On the other hand, we know that US, Canada, France, and UK levied sanctions against 18 Saudis linked to the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, but MBS, of course, wasn't among them. Other European countries just canceled armed deals. So will the international community let that go, James?
Well, I think that you are going to see, certainly if a Biden administration comes to office, a greater scrutiny of arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Now, having said that, there's going to be a lot of lobbying in terms of the Gulf states, particularly because of relations with Israel. The other thing I think that you need to note, and I want to take issue with something that my colleague Azzam said, I don't think it's just Western companies that don't carry human rights first and foremost on their agenda. Neither do Chinese, Russian, or anybody else. Having said that, if you look at the degree of foreign direct investment in Saudi Arabia, there's been really very little bricks and mortar investment by Western companies in the kingdom since the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. There's been financial investment, there's been a lot of services, but there hasn't really been a lot of bricks and mortar. And we'll have to see if that would change.
So, Azzam, what kind of a role did Turkey play in revealing the cover-ups into the murder, and how has that impacted the two-country relations? Has Ankara fallen out with Riyadh? What's your take on that?
Well, what Turkey did was really important. It was vital. Without coming out clean and telling the world what they knew about the crime, probably it would have been simply covered up and forgotten. I mean, had this crime happened in another country where there is no interest in justice, even in the country's own sovereignty, probably there would have been a cover-up. And we know from the information we have that the Saudis tried to buy the Turks. They offered Erdogan a bribe so as to just forget about it and don't mention it, as if to say. But the Turks insisted that they would not participate in that crime.
Yeah, Turkey also says the verdict fell short of meeting the expectations of Turkey and the international community. So, James, Turkey has called on the Saudis to cooperate for the ongoing process. Is this possible?
Well, clearly the Saudis are not going to cooperate. What is clear from all of this process is that they've had the option of transparency all along. They have not exercised that option at any given moment, and they have tried to basically do the minimal to try and be seen as cooperating or being transparent and having a credible judicial process. And they've totally failed in that. There's no reason to believe why they would now suddenly turn around and want to cooperate. That would actually require that they give insight into the way these decisions are taken, who takes these decisions, how they're taken, who they're carried out by, and that's not something that the kingdom would want.
So is it, Azzam, up to the next US president whether MBS will be held accountable or not?
Well, partly, of course, but definitely there is a lot to be expected from Saudi Arabia itself, from the Saudi public. I mean, until when will the people of Saudi Arabia remain indifferent or at least remain silent when they see their de facto ruler acting like a gangster here and there? Yes, a change in America is going to be helpful. That will also even embolden the European position, because generally European policy is impacted upon by the US policy or by US preferences. But eventually a real change will have to come from within Saudi Arabia itself.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk. I appreciate it a lot.